Right, does your downrigger have slop in the swivel base so that it is flopping all over the place in no matter what position you put it in? If so, stay tuned and we will show you how you can make these like brand new. Alright, so we've got the downrigger here in the shed and we are going to disassemble it in order to take the slop out of that swivel base. So these walkers just have a standard size Allen cap head screw. You know, this I think, let's see, is a 3/16. So this is going to separate the downrigger from the base. And those were actually a little bit loose. Which lesson to be learned, I think, when we put these back together. I'll put some thread lock around those from banging around in the car. So here's our swivel base. It's got some gunk and stuff in there. And you'll see that the original manufacturer actually put some rubber dip over the head of this screw and on my other one on the bottom as well. I'm going to be using this for fresh water, so I'm not going to redo that. But if you're salt water, you might want to imitate it. Now, you'll see that this bolt locks into the base. That's what we want. And then it kind of slides here on the top, which on the ones that I did earlier, besides repacking the bearings, cleaning and repacking and tightening, adding this washer underneath that bolt is going to make a world of difference. But you can see just how much wobble there is there. And that's kind of hairy when you're fishing. It just doesn't feel good. So first thing, I'm going to scratch and kind of scrape some of this rubber dip off of that head of that nut. Came off a lot easier on the last one. There we go, it's coming off. Maybe we'll see if we can get the bolt out first. It's going to be a 3/4 head there. My socket will fit on there. No, it doesn't want to, so we'll get some of that stuff off after all. See if we can get some. There we go. Needle nose grabbing on there. That works a lot better. All right, good. Now on the last one I found that this was really set in that base. And so in order to get it off, I ended up taking a clamp and clamping this base to my workbench so that I could get this on here to break it loose. Now this one's already moving. That's quite easy. The other one was not this easy, so I just did a couple of sharp blows with my dead blow mallet to get it off. But this one's coming off just fine. That's handy. Okay, there's our bolts. Take this off, won't be needing it anymore. Okay, now we take these apart. There's our top and our bottom. Here's our little detents where the stopper goes in to lock it in on the different swivels. So we'll put this aside for now. And what you'll see is on top you've got this large 2 washers and a roller bearing. And the grease is very gunky and nasty, and this is very chunky. So we're going to clean this and repack it, and it's going to make it silky smooth for when we're spinning. And then underneath that, you've got a nylon washer and a steel washer just to kind of buffer that. And on my other one, I actually put a thin coat of grease on these as well, and it was quite nice. So there's our base. We're going to clean these things up well, and any kind of solvent would be great. You could use kerosene, brake and parts cleaner. Earlier I had a can of mass airflow sensor cleaner that was out of propellant, and there was just a few drips in there, so I put a little cut in the can and used it up. I happen to have some brake cleaner here, so we'll carefully, use a little bit of this to clean things up. So any dish is helpful. I've got one of these magnetic bases, fine. And again, I feel a little bit bad, using brake cleaner. It's pretty nasty stuff that evaporates quickly, but that'll be fine. So spray some in there. I got a little brush here. I'm going to try to get all that grease out of that roller bearing and in between. Really we want it nice and clean, no grease. Now if you have a parts washer, you got a better equipped shop, that would be awesome. But sometimes when you're just, a DIY guy working out of your shed, you do the best you can with what you got, right? Alright. So I should have shown you better, but in all these little indentations, you've got, that built-up gunky grease that is almost more like wax or something right now. And we're just trying to scrub all that nasty stuff out. Okay. So that nice final spray, just, make sure it's the last thing that touches it is nice clean brake cleaner. Now the grease is out, and I can just feel that rolling so nicely between my fingers. Alright, so there's that. Next are these washers. They'll clean up pretty easily. Just wipe them down after that brake cleaner. There's our other steel washer. Another steel washer. I think these are all stainless, by the way. Walker, it's really great. I wish I knew what decade this downrigger was from. But it really is a beautiful example of American engineering, done very well. I'm just going to lightly buff this nylon washer here. I don't want to soak it in the brake cleaner. I don't know how harsh that solvent will be on it, but this will get kind of some of the scuffs and the nasty stuff off of it. So there we go. That's that. So these bearings are clean. Now what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to dip my rag in a little bit of this solvent, the brake cleaner that we just did. I'm just going to wipe down and clean everywhere that these washers and other things are going to touch. That's nice. This one's actually looks a lot better than the last one, even though it's got all that slop. Okay, that's nice and clean. If you want, can't hurt, while you're there, just to kind of wipe out the gunk and those little detents. Okay. Might as well wipe off the rest of the base, these places where you can't get to otherwise. This kind of feels nice to know that your equipment's cleaned up. Okay, now, next thing. This is the top of the base, and this is where we mentioned that original bolt went in. And we're going to, when we reassemble this, we're going to put this stainless steel washer on there. And so what I want to do is make sure that this is nice and cleaned out. So I've got a little steel wool, and I'm just going to kind of spin this around there to get some of that gunk out. So that's a nice clean surface. It's still got a bunch of that plasti dip, rubber dip. So I'm going to get most of it out dry, and then I'll dip my steel wool in that solvent one last time to make that nice and clean. Okay, now that brake cleaner in my steel wool. And then a final wipe. some more of the brake cleaner on that way, keep that nice and clean. Couple little stubborn spots, I'm just going to scratch out there. The rest of our brake cleaner that's all been evaporating, probably breathing it right now. Okay, that looks good. So we've got a clean base of the base, and all of our parts are nice and clean. It's time to grease them up. So you could use whatever grease you want. I've got, you know, wheel bearing grease and marine grease. I am a freshwater application, so white lithium is a nice basic light grease. It's going to slide very well. You could use marine grease, especially if you're hardcore saltwater. It's going to be a little stiffer, but it will repel water better. You know, to each their own. If you have a recommendation for a better grease, go ahead and put them in the comments. So, right, so we're just going to reassemble these things. There's a little bit of grease. I'm going to lightly lube this nylon washer. Maybe you don't need that, but I don't think it can hurt, you know. Get both sides of that pretty light. Put that in there. Looks good. And you know, if you want, I might go down and grease the other side of that washer too. Again, can't hurt anything. So back of the washer there. Maybe a little thin little coating in that race there. That's nice. That'll be happy. And actually, let me pay attention here to how that's going to go. This is actually the washer up here. So remember how it goes back together. The steel washer up and the nylon washer because they get sandwiched together. Then we're going to have our races here. So I'm going to lightly coat each of the washers, but it's that bearing that's going to get the heavier coating. So see, that's just a nice light coating. Put that there on the base. In fact, I'm going to do a nice little light coating on the base there too. Should be the bearing that's doing all the sliding, but you know, once in a while, catches or whatever. Once again, some of you guys may be much more experienced than this than I, and you can call me out on anything that's, you know, unnecessary greasing or anything like that. So there's our two washers. Now the most important thing is going to be this bearing. You really want to, you know, pack the grease in there and really work it. I'm kind of pinching it from both sides and rolling those rollers. You know, we don't want any air gaps. It's not a wheel bearing. I mean, that's more like wheel bearing protocol, but, you know, it'll repel water, keep you from getting other stuff in there. While we got it apart, you might as well do it right, right? So I'm just working, kind of scraping with my finger, then squeegeeing across the top, scrape and squeegee. Getting that on both sides. We're going to get messy doing this. Getting that all packed. No air bubbles, no gaps. Nice and full of grease. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Got grease everywhere. We're going to put that down there. We're going to put our washer right there. Got all this grease on our hands. I think I'm going to put a little bit in this top race where we're going to put our washer. Again, I don't think it can hurt anything. Going to wipe our hands off with our trusty rag. Clean things up just a bit. And I'm going to put a thin coat on the shoulder of our screw, but not the threads. And the reason for that is because we're using the thread locker, and we need to have nice clean threads for that to latch onto. So I should have done this before I wiped off my hands, but when you're talking about it and doing it, it tends to make it a lot harder in my experience. Now, here's that key thing we're adding. This washer here is going to allow the weight of the top of the downrigger to be more widely distributed. What happened is this hex basically wore a groove in the top of this, which introduced that slop. So now we put this washer on. It's a nice stainless steel washer. It can't be more than a 1/16 thick, maybe a little less actually, so it's not going to take away too many of our threads there. I'm going to put that in there. See that? Now I want to make sure that in here I'm not going to pick up a bunch of grease on my threads and pull them down into my thread locker, you know, which would be mallow. And now I'm going to take my thread locker. And I'm just going to get this on my threads. Dabble do ya. Just want that to evenly go inside the threads. Coat them nicely. Now the blue and the red thread locker. The blue you can break away later with hand tools. The red, they say you have to heat to 500 degrees. And, you know, this originally didn't have thread locker. But for me, this is peace of mind. You know, you're banging down the road and downriggers get a lot of vibrations. And so, you know, just gives you peace of mind that it's not going to fail. So now we're going to reassemble. Again, I'm going to try to get that in there so that it's not picking up a bunch of grease as it goes down. Catching a little bit, so we'll get our 3/4 inch socket back on here to righty-tighty. Okay, now as it starts to get tight, you don't want it too tight, but you have to keep in mind it is gonna wear over time. So that's fairly snug. And again, after our thread locker dries, we'll know that this bolt isn't spinning. But boy, I tell you, that feels so nice and tight. It's smooth, it's silky. There's absolutely no wobble in that anymore. So we'll put the top on, we'll let the thread locker dry, and then we will try it out, and I think be really, really pleased with how this turned out. Again, if any of you know the vintage of these these Walker downriggers, I would absolutely love to know what they are, what year they are, what decade they are even. They're older. You may have seen my earlier videos and fixing the pulley on the front. Oh, actually, we said we were going to put thread locker in these too, didn't we? So a little dab there. Great. And a little dab here. Wonderful. That's going to give us some peace of mind going down the road about these not vibrating loose the whole way. All right, so we'll get these back on the boat eventually, but just look at that. There's no slop in that at all. It's just wonderful, like brand new. So thanks so much for watching this. I hope you found it helpful. You know, people say like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And I want to say like and subscribe because if I can hit 1,000 subscriptions, then I'll actually get some of the money from the YouTube ads, or the YouTube ads that you're watching anyway. So if you hit that subscribe money, you're helping to put a little bit of that money in my pocket instead of Google or YouTube. So I'd very much appreciate it if you did that, and that's the honest reason why I'm asking. So thanks for watching. Again, if you have good things to contribute, put it in the comments, and look forward to interacting with any of you online. Thanks again for watching. Here's the final product after the rebuild. As I move this up and down with the arm, there is no slop in that at all. And the spinning is just absolutely silky smooth. So once again, thanks for watching. And if you like it and want to help me out, hit that subscribe button. Thanks, everybody.